I don't have a gavel, but I will go ahead and call the meeting to order. And our first item is roll call, please.
Dave Anderson? Here. Carl Broberg? Here. Jen Mazias?
Here.
Mary McGrath?
Here.
Tom Nymus?
Here.
Karen Novacek?
Here.
Laura Tulowitzki?
Here.
All present, a quorum is met.
Excellent, thank you very much. Our next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and recite the pledge. Hold on, I just lost my screen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sorry, the sound is off slightly, so I was hearing you and me in different times there. Okay, our next item is approval of minutes from December 12th of 2022.
I'll make that
Is there a motion?
Second.
Sorry, who was the motion?
Tom.
Tom. Motion by Tom, second by Karen. Any comments, questions? I had two minor edits that I shared with Scott. Nothing that changed the content. Seeing no other questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is approval of monthly expenditures via roll call vote.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the monthly expenditures as reviewed.
Second. Motion by Karen, and was that a second by Laura?
Mary.
Oh, by Mary, thank you. Motion by Karen, second by Mary. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Laura Tulowitzki?
Yes.
Karen Novacek?
Yes.
Tom Nymus?
Yes.
Mary McGrath?
Yes.
Jen Mazias?
Yes.
Carl Broberg?
Yes.
Dave Anderson? Yes.
Very good, thank you. Our next item is public comment. Is anyone either online or in person that would like to give public comment?
Does not appear so.
Okay. Seeing there are no public comments, we'll move on to mayoral announcements, proclamations, and appointments. Don't have any announcements or proclamations. Although I have received an interesting request for a future proclamation. Something about L. Ron Hubbard. We'll see if that one makes it to the table.
Okay.
I do have an appointment or a recommendation for one under tab 1. You'll see the brief memo about Susan Hall to fill the current vacancy on the Parks Committee.
I make a motion to appoint Susan Hall to the Parks Committee. Second.
Motion by Jen, second by Laura?
Yes.
Okay, any questions, comments?
Susan did call me to talk to me about the Parks Committee. We had a good conversation. I feel like she has a different perspective than what we have on the Parks Committee right now, which is something that I was looking forward to having. We have people there that have natural resource background. Jamie Cook brought a lot of different perspectives to our Parks Committee. We're going to miss her, so I'm excited that Susan's application is, very similar, different type of experience and background to bring to our committee. I recommend appointing her.
Nice, I'm glad she called and chatted with you. Any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, and thanks to Susan. Our next item is discussion and action on approval of Phase 1 Bayfield Street utility plans and ancillary projects. This is a complicated one that I'm going to turn over to Scott to lead us through, and this is in tab 2 of your packet.
Decide I can't.
Oh, did I skip one?
Nope.
No.
All right, can you all see that? We're just trading spots here. What I want to do is go through from one end to the other what is proposed here for the utility portion of the Bayfield Street project for Phase 1. And we have Jerry and Joel here present as well to help me, keep me on task with some of the details and to help answer any questions that need help answering. So what we're basically going to do is we're going to start at the far west end and work our way back. And what you're looking at here is our existing utility map that has it's overlaid with the Bayfield County records here. So this is one of the upgrade. We got this year or two ago.
2 years now.
And this has been an excellent tool for us to keep track of all kinds of utility information. They use it for elevations. Anytime we do repairs, it locates all of our hydrants. Whenever we have a break, all of that information is all kept digitally now in this computer program. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Can't see the legend though, so is blue and green, assuming you're gonna explain it to us,
So blue will be water, green is sewer.
thank you.
So with sewer, you have arrows because the sewer is largely a gravity system. The arrows will show the direction of the flow. Let me just get my notes here ready. So with this project, a couple of the first things to be aware of. Been having discussions of whether or not we should go with ductile iron or PVC for water lines. And so at this point, our recommendation is that we bid this project with both. And we see where it comes out. So it'd just be an alternate. Then at the time we get the bids, then we can pick. We can have that debate and discussion at that time. So we're kind of pushing that down, and then we get costs for both, and take it from there. In addition, we are going to be requiring, where necessary, 6-inch sewer laterals to the property line. The initial plan that AIRS had given us was for 4-inch, but it's my understanding, Joel, 6-inch sewer laterals is standard.
Yes.
So that was a yes. Okay, so as far as some of the things here, we know that currently the the property currently known as CR Treasures is under consideration for development. And there are a couple potential connection points here, but we're going to streamline that so that we just have just one connection at that location. So, so a couple of these services will be abandoned. As we move down the block here, we're currently seeing the right in this area, the Santa Leenda water service, and then we have the Scarecrow Pizza. Right now, these stubs in this area are not, and we're going to see here if I can move in just a little bit. These stubs in this area are not proper. We have laterals crossing property lines. The Scarecrow Pizza will need a new sewer main at this location, so we're going to have to add that into the plan. And there was an issue with the Santa Leenda water line. That's correct, and so that also has to be redone. So we know a few of those things, and here's you're seeing, here's 3 locations where we've had water breaks in the past. So I click on that. I'm just kind of looking at myself. So, while we're down at this end, this is one of the locations that we were looking at as one of the additional projects to basically a side job to get a bid on as an ad alternate proposal. What you're looking at here, we're in the, this is the 900 block between Bayfield Street and Omaha. We have a sewer main that is in the alley here, and this is an old clay tile sewer that's very fragile. It should be replaced. In addition, we have some possibilities here of development of properties in this block. But we don't have water that goes through Omaha. So that is a hindrance. So one of the things, and this goes back to when the city did major utility improvements back in the 2004, 5, 6 timeframe, and you got federal grant to help with all that. Our ordinances were updated and so forth at the time. One of the big things with that project was making sure that laterals do not cross property lines, because that causes a whole pile of issues, especially if there's not proper easements. And then somebody has an issue, then they got to dig up the neighbor's yard, and that's just not something that anyone wants to deal with. So our ordinance now says, and we have been enforcing this, that your lateral needs to go out and make a direct connection with the main. So we've got a couple houses here on this block and then across the street that currently are not complying with that. So we want to look at also getting an estimate for extending the water along Omaha to connect here. And this basically loops the system as well to help eliminate dead ends. The fewer dead ends you have on the water system, the better off you are, as well as far as circulation and keeping your water fresh. So that's another reason why we are looking at that. As far as whether or not the sewer should be on Omaha or in the alley, well, we'll discuss that with the engineer. Right now it's in the alley. We wouldn't necessarily want to dig up Omaha Street here if we don't have to. That'll just add to the cost. So we'll work out that detail and figure out what's best, but this is one of those side projects that we want to look at adding into the project if we can afford it. And we'll talk about costs here at the end.
You want questions as we go?
If you have questions specifically on these areas, sure.
Yeah, so just help me out here. So if you were gonna do, water along Omaha, you'd have to dig it up too, right? So you would do the water and the sewer in the same area, or no, they have to be separated,
You gotta have about 8 feet of separation between water and sewer. mains.
8 feet separation?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you notice, the water is kind of on the, either north side of Omaha.
Uh-huh,
You could probably get by with not digging up the whole street there. So
put it
that
there.
it would save substantial amount of money, rather than having to dig the whole street up, you could stay a few
Okay.
feet.
That's helpful. My second question is, so if you're going to, I was here back in the day when we redid the 2005 and 6 stuff, and a lot of us at that time, I can't remember if we were asked or if we had to put in our new laterals to the new sewer system, water, sewer. Anyways, I remember I did it, my whole yard, crazy. And we had to pay for that. And I can't remember if we got a choice or not. Did we get a choice or did we have to do it? We had to do it, right? So these people, if we put in a new sewer, would they have to, if we moved it, say, would they have to hook into it at a different place and they have to do that on their properties to like avoid all the stuff that's probably not going well there?
If we put in it, a new location, they would have to move it.
Okay.
So a letter went out, it's got to be about a year or so, or to all the property owners along this phase, advising them and suggesting to them that they do, in fact, plan to replace their laterals,
Okay,
because now's the time to do it.
totally. And it's cheaper to do it when they're in there and it works out and they got it all done up. And that's why we all did it. But
Correct.
I know that some people on my block were like, I don't want to do it. They didn't want to pay for it, but anyway.
So we
Okay.
have not mandated it.
Okay.
It could be mandated if we dig it up and say, this isn't good, you've got to do it.
Okay.
But people really should, we recommend that they plan to do it.
Okay.
But
And
we
there-
can have that debate on mandating it or not.
Okay, and they're aware, as of a year ago, to start thinking about this kind of stuff. That was one of my fundamental questions of why I was asking who was responsible, if we were gonna make them do it, blah, blah, blah. So, thank you.
I think we should probably mention too, Scott, that we are getting an inventory of what everybody has along Bayfield Street inside their house for plumbing, what's coming into the house. So if they have a good copper line coming in, obviously I don't see a reason that they have to replace it. We could hook onto that. But if it's an old galvanized line, then we're gonna highly stress or possibly mandate that, yeah, you need to replace this.
Okay, that's good enough. Thank you.
I have a quick question. So if the sewer is in the alley, that's currently where their sewer laterals are connected now. If we bring it to Omaha, then it's gonna be a fairly larger expense on the property owner to move it.
Yep, correct.
So where do those folks get their water from now?
For example, these homes right here have service laterals that cross over to 10th, and this house, I don't know who that is, has a service ladder that's going to cross over and go to the alley access over here on 9th. So we don't know exactly how this line goes, but it goes something like that. So, which is,
So if the water lines move to home or extended down Omaha, they're gonna have some expense.
Yeah.
Anyway.
correct.
Scott, I had a question. Were the property owners on the south side of Omaha also received the letter, or was it only the property owners along Bayfield Street?
At this point, only property owners along Bayfield Street. This has just been a recent discussion of adding this portion into the project.
So this would be new news, I mean, obviously new news to those other property
That would be correct.
owners.
Yes.
I have a question. It's for Joel. Is the PVC better than that ductile iron? Because I know you've been replacing that stuff up on E Street and you were complaining about it wasn't properly installed or wasn't properly
Bedded.
compacted.
They, you know, it's, I'm old school, I do like ductile iron, that's all I ever dealt with. But the C900 has come a long way, that's the PVC stuff, C900 is the technical name. At this point, I just feel it'd probably be worthy to bid in both and see where they come out at. Because right now, it's, you know, C900 was a lot cheaper at one point, but with petroleum prices going up, that
Yeah,
price is starting to come
probably
up
gone
and it's starting to get even with ductile. So let's see where they come at.
Any additional questions in this area? Okay, we'll move on. Let's see. We don't really have too much of interest until we get down here.
8th Avenue, those guys.
Oh, 8th Avenue, I'm sorry, missed that one. How could I miss 8th Avenue? Okay, so the 8th Avenue line, if we go up here a little ways,
All the way to 4th Street.
up to 4th Street, you're gonna see these orange X's. These are all recent breaks. So this is where Humpty Dumpty we're gonna have a difficult time. We get more breaks. We've got so many patches. This thing is just going to collapse upon us. So that is one of the proposed project, and I'd say this would be one of the we have. I would say the three of them are high priority. The first one that we just discussed on the 900 block would probably be the lowest priority of the projects. But this one would be a priority as long as we are digging to fix this water line in this area as well. Because we also know that Bayfield County is planning to do a Highway C project and repave this area in the near future as well. So
why does it keep breaking so much there?
the issue is my understanding is it's the settling when this is a work that was done back in the 2004-06 time frame, but it was an issue of the materials that were put in there, and for whatever reason there have been rocks that have been on the water line and that vibrates, and it basically
We're in the hole.
exactly. So you guys can explain more. But
Yeah, it's rocks, asphalt, concrete, found everything on top of it. It's a ductile iron water main. It's a good water main, but when the contractor doesn't do the job right and he beds it with junk like that, that's what you're gonna have. It takes several years, but now
Now
Exactly.
it's coming to.
Yep.
Okay. So we would just fix that,
we would have to replace that line.
replace that line.
Is that gonna be assessed to the property owners then along that?
As far as assessments are concerned, only in locations where we are going to be placing new services would be, and I'm glad you brought that up because I did kind of skip over that. Only in locations where we would have new services would we consider assessments. Otherwise, people who are existing connected to the system would not be specially assessed. So one of the, for example, I'm back over here in the, this is the 900 block of Bayfield Street. We've got the Scarecrow Pizza, the Santa Leenda here, but we have these other vacant properties. And one of the reasons why these properties have not developed is there is no sewer service in this area. And the new project plan, we're looking at what's existing today. In your packet, you've got the draft actual plan. And so our thought here with this the entire length of this project is where we believe there's potential for future development, we want to put stubs and connection boxes in, so we don't have to dig up the street later. And these would be candidate properties for that. And since they don't have the service, they would be subject to potential special assessment.
Because it will increase their value too,
Correct.
so theoretically.
But we've already set a precedent, so would we want to follow through with that?
Set a precedent by not doing special assessments?
No, by doing special.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Next time.
Exactly.
Right.
At this point, I can't even calculate what it would be, but we're gonna have to work on that as we finalize our plans and get estimates and with any potential grant financing. So it's gonna get complicated.
And nobody's gonna complain about. New services that will increase the value of their property.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Last time we did that, like up in the woods, at least now we're in Bayfield Street.
So when was the first time we noticed the substandard fill compaction around the ductile water line on 8?
I've been here a little over 5 years and I fixed, 5 main breaks there. I don't know if there was any prior to that. I think it all happened within the last 5-6 years.
And hopefully it's nowhere else.
What's that?
Hopefully it's not in very many other locations.
No, I just hope it was that one contractor
One
who only did
contractor
that
that-
couple blocks there or whatever.
It would have been up by Third Street. I think that's where you saw it, and I was talking to you.
There's no going after it's not worth it.
At this point, to try to prove that, I don't believe so. I don't think if Max is listening, but we're so far out of the warranty period for that project that.
And that's why I stress you should have, you gotta hold these contractors to task. You should have supervision of them, have on-site supervisors watching backfill, compaction, everything. That's why this project, when it's done, I stress that we need pay the extra money to have that done. Otherwise you run into this.
Joel, do you have a microphone that you can talk into?
Yeah, I couldn't hear specifics on that question.
Take that one.
Can I go mobile with it?
Yes. Make sure it's on. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
I think you have to talk really directly right into it.
This better? Yeah. Yeah, I just stress that, these are the reasons why we gotta have supervision of these contractors, especially with the project this scope, this size. So we don't run into problems like this with poor backfill, compaction, and then years down the road, you're gonna have nothing but problems. So I'm just making that point.
And pay the extra money.
Pay the extra money, because otherwise it'll come back to haunt you.
And the question was, is there anything that we can do from that project back from 2004 and 2006? And these water main breaks have started occurring about 5 years ago or so. I believe, Max, unless you would think otherwise, at this point, I don't think that there's any recourse that the city would have because we'd be so far out of our warranty period on that.
And Scott, I'm just
The longest I've ever seen is 10 years for road construction and compaction.
I was just gonna point out too, it was actually, I believe the County C was done in the late 90s or early 2000s as well. So it's even further back than the 04-05 project.
Okay.
We have to do just a little bit of cleanup work here. This is the city garage. And when this was built, they didn't quite do the water connection right at the time. The old garage was right here, so they kind of tapped into the hydrant location there. So basically, they'll just be putting new water service in at the garage at the proper location. Going down here, we're now at 4th Avenue. So we've got Patsy's here at this corner. We have the Artist Squares Gallery here at this corner. And what we're looking at here is the water main on 4th Avenue West is a 4-inch service, and that is not up to code. Minimum code is 6-inch, correct?
Correct.
So this is one of the requested projects is to replace this 4-inch main with a 6-inch main. And if we replace the main, it would be moved to this side of the street, the west side of 4th Avenue West. It would be, and we understand that this will be one of the access points for businesses while the highway is closed. So we are sensitive to that. We didn't want to disrupt access to these businesses and potential crossover here. But it is anticipated that this work could be completed within a couple days, if that is correct. So with that, we still wanted to recommend going forward with this project to take care of this connection so that we have a proper looping system and services in this location.
If you notice, there are some orange X's there too. We've had a couple of main breaks on that 4-inch, which is in very, very poor shape. And plus with the 4-inch, if we up it up to 6 or 8-inch, we'll get a better looping of that system down there. And better pressures, better fire flows, all that also.
Question.
Is the 4-inch only on that 2-block segment there?
Yes.
1 block segment, you're just looking at the alley there.
Oh, right.
So does that go from 4 to 6 down to that, housing? Is those apartments down below that?
No, that should be 8-inch. That was done in 05, 06, so that's all newer stuff.
So low priority, high priority.
Kind of a neat. Oh. he said I think the highest priority is coming up. So I would put this one in the middle. I think that what we have coming up here at Washington Avenue is the highest priority. You guys can debate whether 4th Avenue and 8th Avenue, which one is the highest priority between the two there. So.
But the bottom line is, if we don't fix it now, while we're doing it, and we're getting breaks, I mean, how much does each one of those breaks cost us, you know, and, right, I mean.
Well, and that's a fair point. We'll talk
Money later.
We'll talk money later. The point at this point is we want to make you aware of
Yeah.
this and to put these projects in the packets, to have them designed and to have them bid.
Yeah.
So we know what the cost is going to be.
Yep. Good idea.
If we don't have the money, then we'll have to prioritize that later. But we know that this is going to have to be done eventually, as soon as we can find the funds.
Okay.
So as we move on here, and talking about services, we also know that we wanted to have a service or two put in here at Rickdahl Park. You'll have another agenda item to discuss potential bathroom. So, you know, where exactly it would probably be on this side or this side. I don't know exactly where at this point, but we wanted to at least have the option of having that in so we don't have to dig everything up if we decide to do something at this location. Just going back a little bit, we know that we've got a couple goofy services in this block. You got 3 or 4 services right here, and we don't even know where they all go to.
That's
So-
CPA.
That's the CPA office.
There used that M&E building used to be there, so that probably had a service going back in there. That's probably one you don't know.
When we dig this up, we might come into a few other surprises, but we're aware of this one, so we intend to get this all cleaned up. We had a similar issue here at the Martini Bar. I think their service is like over where here, it's here, when it should be here, even though it's shown, whatever. So,
Yeah, the little blue dots there are what I identify curb stops. So that's where the water curb stop is, where we own that to that property, to the curb stop, and then from there is then the property owner's side.
So for example, like, let's just use that one as an example, that probably goes, my question for the other ones, like the CPA and stuff too. So are we gonna, is it their responsibility then to, like, if he's got water coming across underneath his parking lot and we want to hook in over there, is that, I mean, is that gonna be his responsibility then? Yes.
in that, the property owner is responsible for the service lateral. In this case, we would actually be shortening that service lateral,
Right,
but he would still be responsible for something there.
right, because it doesn't go there, right? So
Correct.
we have to do something.
So as opposed to
Okay.
this distance, it would be that distance.
So in that particular instance, why do we care? We're shortening it, it's all on his property, it's not like he's going across. In terms of making somebody do something,
In theory here, a little known facts of this property right here, which has a portion of this parking lot, is a separate property owner. In theory, someone could purchase this property and put up another building there, then this would be the service that would more logically serve that property. We don't know what's gonna happen in the future.
gotcha.
This is a fairly significant lot for a small building. It's possible this could get changed in the future.
Right.
And we want to be prepared for that.
And this is just one example, I mean, even the other ones with the CPA, if they're all like in this one area, we're gonna ask them to put them all in the proper location versus in one spot. I'm just trying to understand when people ask me questions, that they're gonna, and why we want people to have the proper location for their services.
And you'll probably be asked these questions, yes.
I have one other question. Has any of the soil by the post office and in that area been tested for contaminants?
At this point, I'm not aware of anything that has been tested for contaminants. However, as part of this project, and these are going to be the federal regulations that the DOT has to deal with, they have to test, and if they do come across contaminated soil, it will need to be removed and replaced with fresh.
I'm just curious because there was a gas station, I know before I was in there, gas was allowed to run all over the place. And plus there's a small engine shop right next to it.
And those are the reasons why we need to have a large contingency for this project, because we're going to run into something like that. Because if there is any contaminated soil, it will not be allowed to go back in.
And Tom, they did do soil borings, I want to say it was last summer, at all old service station sites and things like that. I don't know what the results were, the DOT did that.
Okay.
So we are getting here to Washington Avenue. We had discussed the this, what we call the Bayfield Street spur. This back, this was changed back in the 20s. The highway used to go straight through and did a T at this location, and this was a leftover right here. So to be basically right across the street from us, in front of the Nowakowski property. We will plan to leave the arrangement for the utilities like this at this location. So we're not going to be able to completely vacate this street. We're going to have to maintain at least utility rights through this area. And we have been having some significant discussions with the stormwater. But before I get into stormwater, let's see here. There was one other. What are we doing here? We're talking about the water service for the broke down. The water service for the broke down comes in off the alley. But this phase of the project is going to end here at 2nd Avenue West. And so we're going to want to make sure that all of these businesses and what we hope here will be our new brew pub will have their service off of Bayfield Street. So, and the thing so everyone understands when this project is occurring, you'll see right now that the water line is currently on the south side of the street. When the project occurs, we're going to be leaving that in place, and they're going to put the new line on the north side of the street and have that all constructed. Then everyone will be switched over. So that's how that will work.
Oh, so when it's going in, you mean, like, and that'll be switched over, and then is that other one that we moved?
No,
Just
they'll-
left in place?
just left in place. And that reason too, you got then you'll have your water for everybody while they're under constructing the new water main. So,
Right, but the old one's left in place, and you just basically go over top of it to the new one across the street?
yes. Yep.
But they were doing Duluth, they spent time walking, I mean, the whole street was opened up, if anybody went there, you could see kind of what this was happening, when it was going on in Duluth recently. It was crazy.
Superior Street.
They were doing Superior Street in Duluth, yeah, they try to get people in there and do like, whoa. Yeah, I'm glad we're not that town, but I mean, it's quite a feat to watch it being done. It's,
So Scott, again, with Nowakowski's property, so you're leaving the line during construction to the south. But then the water line, the new one will be placed to the north.
And they'll have to, figure out how they're going to have to angle that or something in here. That should be on the detailed plans that you receive. And you have to make that up.
And sewer will stay in the center of the highway.
we'll stay at the center.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So, we're at Washington Avenue, and this is another one of the significant issues that we have to address. We've been having DOT meetings for years now. Wow. And one of the things that they wanted us to look at was storm sewer. And so we looked at the storm sewer along this phase of the project. And for the most part, on the west end, the existing locations and flows and volumes and so forth are okay, except here at Washington Avenue. And so we had done a study. So basically what happens right now, and we've seen some of these during these significant rain events. All this water comes down Washington Avenue from areas up above, and that was included in your packet in that map. Comes down fast, rounds this corner, and crosses the street, goes down this spur, and then kind of flows down the street into this area and into the ravines down below here. In looking at some historical documents, before the IGA was here, in this location, this area used to have a ravine going through here. So this is a natural low area, and so water is kind of continuing to do that. And this point in the highway is this low elevation. And so we had to come up with something to stop this. We couldn't, this was when we were having the discussions on whether we could vacate this and kind of close this off and keep this curve and so forth. If we actually did that, we would divert all of that existing water right into the IGA parking lot, and it can go right into the front door of the IGA. So we couldn't do that. So we're looking at the study, and basically what we have come up with, we have a very small pipe. Do you remember how big that pipe is there right now?
There's it's a 24-inch coming down on the west side.
So we have a 24-inch pipe coming through here, but a lot of that water is it's coming down so fast, it's overtopping the grate, and it's just running down the street. And that 24-inch pipe is, as you'll see in the study that was provided in your packet, doesn't even accommodate a simple rain, a one-year storm event. So what we're proposing is a new 60-inch storm sewer pipe to be put in basically from Pine Street, right in front of us here. We're gonna have to dig up right in front of City Hall, cross the street, and down down past to Omaha here, correct?
Yes.
So that is that's a significant project. So that's that's one of those $400,000 jobs to accommodate stormwater. This would get us to a 100-year.
No, 5. Went to the 500. He gave us the smaller diameter for the 100 and the 60-inch for the 500, I believe.
It was only 100.
Oh, is it?
Yes. Yeah, it only accommodated a 48 did not cover a 100-year event, but a 60-inch did cover the 100-year event.
Stand corrected.
We had 200-year events a couple years ago. I mean, I
Put a number on this.
It's, I mean, this day and age, any investment that we have in stormwater is going to save us, or we're gonna be in serious trouble. I mean, we've seen what's happened around, I mean, I don't even know.
Correct.
Build to the climate change. Yeah.
Well,
But at least do 100.
At least do something, but.
with that, we understand that there are going to be events over 100 years, and so we are still going to have an above-ground stormwater conveyance. So there, in the design here, we still need to basically have an above-ground, I call it a canal, it's not necessarily the proper term, through this Bayfield Street spur area to basically have, for those significant rain events, we still need to be able to accommodate water in that area. So the plan is to basically have a V-shaped pathway through that area to be that above ground conveyance for those significant events. To essentially maintain what we have now. But we're hoping with this 60-inch pipe for more of these more traditional rain events, that should be able to accommodate that without any issues.
Question.
And it would reduce a larger storm event.
Correct.
Can you explain a 60-inch and the accommodation for water and sewer? Like 60 inches is way down here, and water and sewer's got to be 8 or.
Well, 60 inches, 5 feet, so.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So it's down.
So water generally is minimal. Oops.
Thank you.
Water, I believe here we're generally at 7.
Minimum of 7, yeah.
Yeah, so the water, all water mains are minimum of 7 feet here. And the storm, and the sanitary in this area, looking is a lot deeper than that. So the 60-inch will be roughly just above the water. So you're looking at 5, so it'll be 2 feet, 2 to 3 feet lower than the existing, or going over the existing, or the proposed utilities. I don't think we have the stormwater plan, the actual design.
So it's over the water and sewer as opposed to under the water
Yes.
and sewer, okay, that's what, okay, thanks.
My question was, at that curve, you indicated that it was, extremely low. Will the elevation of the new street be changed to accommodate that dip or that low area?
No, my understanding is we are basically gonna wanna have that water keep that same path. Is that your understanding as well, Gary?
But that it would be less needed with a bigger pipe?
Yes, so even though we're going with the 60-inch storm, because you never know what Mother Nature is gonna throw at you. We're still gonna maintain, what we're actually gonna do is, that's gonna be a lesson, because that, roadway there right now is full width. We're gonna reduce that down to a 16 with an 8-foot, panhead at the entrance there to minimize the traffic trying to utilize that, which will still allow that water to flow through there. And if it does overtake it, that's our secondary overflow for, so it doesn't end up down in the parking lot.
So sure, this pathway here, right in this area, will be narrower, but it will still be designed to be able to carry stormwater.
Okay, thanks.
I don't know, it doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, I think that we see culverts 6 feet diameter, 10, maybe we spend a ton of money in the Forest Service and huge culverts everywhere because of this reason. I mean, I don't think 5 feet is unreasonable by even any means. I mean, I know it's expensive, but I think it's not.
Yeah, those are mainly at river crossings.
All sorts of stuff. I think our floods, the 2020 Father's Day flood and that kind of stuff, really taught us a lot of lessons in terms of how we're doing our infrastructure all over the Northland. Bad River and everybody is changing the way that they're looking at stuff. I don't think this is unreasonable at all.
If anybody's seen the water flow down the hill during a rain event, you know that it literally is like surfing up the curb. It comes down so fast.
I'm surprised it's not
So this seems like a reasonable way to try to alleviate that issue, albeit expensive.
Have I missed any details on the actual project?
No, about sums it up. The main thing is we're gonna get services into all areas that need them, that vacant lots, things like that. Last thing we wanna do is dig into Bayfield Street after this is done. So, and then, of course, addressing all the other side issues we talked about. Hopefully the funding's there and we can do it.
Do we know how much clay tile exists, clay sewer laterals exist in buildings?
As far as like service laterals,
Yeah,
on Bayfield Street, probably quite a few.
I know,
And probably some of that old Orangeburg.
right. So all of that's gonna have to be replaced at the property owner's expense.
Right.
Connect.
We're gonna provide a 6-inch PVC stub to the property line, and then it's up to them to tie into that. If they want to go to a 4-inch PVC, then to the house.
I guess my question would be, if clay tile is discovered, are we going to force the businesses to connect to the new PVC?
It's hard to do that, to force them to do that. We can, try to really highly suggest it, but then they gotta be an understanding, if that collapses or anything happens, then they're gonna have to fix it later, you know?
Well, right, I mean, but most of these businesses are going to be just doing a brand new sidewalk, brand new street. Right?
Correct, yes.
So if we're making steps to create a situation where we don't have to dig into the brand new infrastructure that the taxpayers are paying for, then would there be a reason why we wouldn't want to force, can we force a business to get rid of clay tile?
Scott's shaking his head, yes, I would say, yeah, I never really had to run into that before.
You have an ordinance in place that allows us to determine if your connection is not adequate. We can mandate that it be replaced at your
Well,
expense.
that's what I was gonna say, like, how hard is it gonna be to take some of these old services and connect into your new
It's gonna
system?
be hard.
I mean, it seems like we're gonna have to invoke that quite a bit, or else you're just gonna have issues.
Right, in an 05 and 06, when they did this huge street project here, I found several now where they've had to replace, you know, we've got a great 1-inch copper line going to the property line with our new curb stop, and then they just stuffed into their old galvanized, that's falling apart. And now they're having to replace it. But we didn't mandate it then, obviously, because they just hooked into that old galvanized. So, and same thing with the sewers. I've seen where we come up with a 6-inch PVC and just did a Fernco, which is just a type of fitting, and go into a 4-inch clay. So,
If that is something that the council would like to establish in advance for this project, we'll have to come back with that agenda item this will be our policy, and it will be enforced.
Can the city send out a notice, maybe to businesses that maybe it would be in their best interest to have their sewer line inspected with a camera to determine whether or not they have clay tile, and then that would allow them to budget for a repair?
Everyone did receive a notice already on this phase about a year ago, that they should prepare for that, but it would not hurt to send another notice.
I mean, specifically asking that, not asking, but suggesting that they have their sewer inspected with a camera so that they understand what they're getting into, because I think some folks are not gonna quite understand what this means. You know, that block down here, when we get into phase 2, is pretty old. And I'm sure that, I know my wife and I's business there, we have clay tile. So I'm fully expecting to replace that with new. Fortunately, it's not gonna be that big of a deal. However, I think I have 2 sewer laterals.
Oh, you don't say. Shocker, huh?
yeah, and especially Dave, like what you're saying down there, where you basically got street sidewalk and then the building. I mean, definitely, you know, we gotta get new water lines, new sewer lines into that building. You know, down on this end, the west end's a little different because we do have that buffer, you know, there's usually you got green space before the house or business. So,
I prepared with PVC below my foundation, so I'm good. I don't have to rip up anything inside. Yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be an expense that they're gonna have to endure.
Just a matter of reference, I had a PVC pipe, a sewer pipe going to the main, and it was about 30 feet long, and I had, when they built the house, they backfilled with debris, and it crushed the PVC pipe, and so I had to replace the whole thing, have all the debris taken out and new fill put in, and I think the bill for the 30 feet was about $6,000. And they found the break with a camera. So, but the sewer line was 8 foot down. So that's how big the hole was for the 30 feet in my backyard.
Scott, question? So at this point, because we still are awaiting, figures, you've got an estimate of 514,000. But, at this point, you're wanting action from the council in terms of simply to proceed with planning and get better cost estimates?
So at this point, what I'm gonna be asking of the council is, do you agree with our overall assumptions in this project? Meaning, we're planning to put service laterals in where we said we were gonna put service laterals in. How we bid the PVC versus cast iron or ductile iron pipe, all of those things, plus have these 4 additional projects bid as add alternates so that we will have those costs and be able to determine that when we have it. So that is the action that I will be asking the council to take. Now, but before you take that action,
Okay.
if anyone has any other questions about the project, I just want to talk a little bit here yet about the cost of all of this. So we have the estimates for most of this. These are using today's dollars. Okay. So our best estimate today is this whole thing, if we did this project with all of the alternates and with what we have to contribute to the DOT road portion of the project, for this phase, we're at $3.8 million. Now that's a lot of money. And I can tell you that if we don't get any grant funding and we had to borrow for this money, there will be no phase 2 because we will have used all of our capacity on this phase. So obtaining grant dollars for this project is imperative. And we basically have 3 opportunities. We have applied first for Army Corps funding. That's the one we want. That's a 75-25. That will be significant. If we don't get that, then we're looking at USDA and Clean Water Fund. So that is, and those would be later in the year. And those are basically our 3 options for significant funding for this project. Keep in mind, I have been working for years here to get our debt in line so that we can take out a borrowing for this, but I certainly do not want to borrow everything for this project when we have phase 2. Plus, you have to keep in mind, we have to do additional capital planning this year for other things because we've been informed, we knew this was coming. We know that there's a need for a new fire truck. I can tell you those things aren't cheap either. You have other projects on the table, whether it be park expansion. There's going to be other streets that need to be done. There may be other equipment that needs to be looked at. If you want to do anything else as far as any other amenities, bathrooms or things like that in the parks that ideally would be good to do. That all has to be factored in and planned out and tied in with the borrowing that we're going to need to be working on here at the end of this year. So, because I need to have essentially everything ready to go for April. Now, this is assuming that the DOT is going to be bidding their portion of this work in probably July of this year. So we're going to know where their costs come in at. We already warned today with our meeting with them that my estimate here for the DOT is going to go up because steel prices are increasing. Who knows what it's going to be when we bid this project for us, which is going to be about a year from now, is when we're actually going to bid the utility portion of it. I'm just afraid right now with the way things are that it's going to be more expensive than we anticipate. and that's a significant concern. So if there was one thing that was gonna keep me up at night, this is it. Because the work we have to do to prepare all of this, and to deal with all of these little issues and special assessments is enormous. And this is basically our focus for this year. So,
Stormwater, for that portion in Washington, isn't there like maybe some separate stormwater grants that we can go to? I mean, that's kind of a hot and heavy thing right now that maybe we could leverage. I'm just throwing it out there.
we'll review that with our engineer.
Yeah. I'm just, that's,
but-
that one piece, that is expensive that we really want to have done. I mean, I think that there's some different funding sources, I think, hopefully available for that too.
I'm going to be planning on talking with our Senator Baldwin's office. They have some funding requests that they put in, I want to say in April. So I'm planning on getting in touch with her representative, I think it's Anna Ringstad, to see if that would be qualifying. Also, Scott, did you say we did already apply for one of the grants?
Correct.
And was that using the figure that we think now is maybe even going to be too low? And if so, is that something we can adjust?
Well, we can consider doing an adjustment, but I don't have the justification yet. As the justifications come in, I can adjust this figure, so.
Okay. So you're looking for action on approval of the plans as presented and the ancillary projects being included.
Correct.
Is there any other discussion, or would someone like to make that motion?
Move to proceed with preparing the utility plans as presented this evening.
I'll second that.
That was a motion by Carl and a second by who?
Tom.
Tom, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Well, thanks. I mean, this is really helpful. I know it's a ton of work. But appreciate all the work that you guys are putting into it. Not easy.
Agreed. This is excellent. Excellent job explaining it to us. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very, very much for walking us through that and for all of your extra time. Not only the staff that are normally there with us, but Jerry and Joel for joining us as well.
If I could just do a quick note on phase 2. So we are hopefully going to have some public information sessions on some planning components for that next month. We have to set those dates, not to conflict with any park activities. So we're trying to get that set up because we have to get the DOT some answers on that. I had informed the council, but I've not made it public yet because we did ask that question today about the time frame for the phase 2 work. The DOT did push that project out to 2027. However, if we pushed, we could probably get it back into 2026. That's why I have not put any public announcements out there about that. The only advantage to the city for having the 3-year window would be for potential grant funding, because both the Clean Water Fund and the USD is going to require a 3-year lag between application periods. But the grant that I really want isn't going to have that requirement, and if we get that one, then it's a non-issue, and we would probably want to push ahead with 2026 as opposed to having an unfinished city for 3 years. So
Any idea when we'll know that?
I'm hoping here within the next few months. But, that could be an act of Congress, so literally it is an act of Congress, so it depends on what's gonna happen, so.
But DOT left the door open for, pushing, continuing it in, 26.
Correct, so at this point, I'm not gonna commit on anything, I'm simply gonna say, it could be 2027, it could be 2026, we don't know. But we're gonna have to, I'm just gonna advise people it could be either or at this time. So,
Okay, thank you. Is that it on phase 2 update?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to our next item, which is discussion and action on resolution 23-002 for authorization to apply for Vibrant Spaces grant for Woodfall Park. That's tab 3 of your packet.
I go, oh, wait. There.
Okay,
Move to approve resolution 23-002.
I'll second that motion.
okay, there was a motion by Carl, I believe.
Yes.
And who was the second?
I was Karen.
Second by Karen. Any questions, comments, any additional information, Tony or Jen, on that?
Well, it didn't go in front of the Parks Committee because of the timing.
Yes, and I apologize for that. This is something that I would have taken to the Parks Committee first for recommendation. But as I was exploring and getting more information about this grant, which has a due date at the end of this month, it is it's a pilot grant, so it may not happen next year. So it seems like the opportunity to try for this is now.
Yeah, and this is where I get, I mean, it's kind of endless, right? Like when we chase grants and we do different things, it's just one of the things that Scott was just warning us about, right? It's super hard not to do that because pilot grant, cool thing. We want to have this kind of improvements for our community. We have a current situation where we're having these events where we don't really have great bathrooms. And so the fact to have that in one location, have a bathroom is like super, I mean, right now what's going on in Bayfield, I mean, you hear about bathroom issues in Bayfield? I mean, come on. And so I think it's great, but I just think, again, we just have to be cautious on how much we do this. I'm in full support of this, but, it's, if you look at it, the estimate is $135,000. This grant goes up to $50,000. Another chunk of change to be able, if we do get the grant, to actually be able to implement this. That's all I have.
Would this be a seasonal restroom, just out of curiosity?
Oh, could be.
Guess I don't know. I mean, I didn't discuss that. Seasonal. We'll see.
Versus year-round? It'd be great to have it be year-round, but then that's more maintenance, of course.
And
And-
the park
and
really
is
isn't
this-
used in the winter time.
Right.
Right now, it's not.
Right.
Until we have
But
a
it could
winter
be.
festival and we do ice sculptures in it.
Good
Just
point.
saying. Not like it when I saw in Ashland, they're having a little winter festival. I want to have a winter festival.
Right.
And I think this park would be great. So I do think, that's another thing, we could look at the different costs, right? Like because if we could do something that's easily year round. I think those are just,
blow the pipes. You blow the pipes, turn the water off and put antifreeze in.
Yeah, we winterize the winter park.
Yeah.
Right.
Same thing.
But if you wanted.
I can't really hear very well for people who don't
we
have a
were just
microphone.
talking about what the difference was between a winter all around and one that you just closed down. So I think those was just something we talked about that we could investigate what the difference is and how much money it would actually cost. I don't know.
Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead, Karen.
Tony, what would be the timing in terms of decisions regarding the award of such a grant?
Well, let's see, the application is due.
There's
the
a
end of
little
this
chart
month,
at the bottom of the flyer.
And, yeah, so it would be announced in May.
Yeah, there's a little
Got it.
chart there at the bottom.
Thank you.
The use of the grants and is there a deadline for getting installation done?
It would need to be
Getting
started
other
this year. So part of the reason that I didn't call sooner about it, because I was just mulling it in the back of my head, knowing that if we do put a bathroom at Wickdale, it would make sense to do that next year when we're doing the street improvements. But with this grant, the project would have to start this year. So we could start with the construction and finish of a band stage, which would get used. And then it would continue into next year when we could actually do the install of the bathroom. So.
This
And
is,
is a stage part of the newly recommended comprehensive outdoor recreation plan?
It is in there.
oh yeah,
So that is, I mean, what is being proposed is something that the Parks Committee has discussed. And they have made those recommendations for the park outdoor, the outdoor rec plan.
It just hasn't gone through formal approval yet.
Correct.
This grant is specifically for Wickdell.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Yeah, well, I just wanna, at our last planning commission meeting, something I've been mulling over, in my head is the Omaha property, and no one knows what to do with it. It's always a big fight. And I made a suggestion that maybe we look at creating green space in the Omaha property area and replace that park space. Take the Wickdall Park, which is right on our city commerce highway, that we can then split that park into buildable, developable lots that we could use for business and keep our business on our main street and use the Omaha property as a band stage in park area. Instead, that would attract people to the lake instead of a highway. That could be better used for commerce, in my opinion, but I'm just, if we go this route and accept this grant and put, you know, if everyone likes my idea, then maybe we don't need it. So. But,
Well, it was interesting because the reaction by the plan commission, it was kind of like, that's not a bad idea. But that's as far as it went because, we weren't in a position to, take any action on anything or make any recommendations necessarily specifically for that. I don't even know if it's possible
right.
to swap properties when you have a park property. And I don't know if anyone has any insight on that at this moment, but I guess my thinking is that if we carefully consider the location of a restroom, if it were to be added, I think it would be a complement to that informational kiosk that's already there. And theoretically, there could be a small area that still would be public there, even if something were to come about as far as that scenario that you're talking about, Dave.
Yeah, but if we construct a band stage and,
Sure.
If we accept this and, are we committed to having this be like that for decades to come? Or is this something that we can choose to move on there?
So on this issue, I was at the planning commission meeting and I started to look at, see if there was any history of Wickdall Park. Because one, I want to check to see if there are covenants on that property when it became a park, if it has to stay a park. And I haven't done a title search on the property yet to see. I know that we apparently have such a thing for Legion Park, but I have not researched Wickdall Park. So that would be one question that should be answered. You can discuss whether or not you think it's a good idea, in theory, to basically abandon the park and create a new park in its place, a different location, if it's possible. But this is all, if you're going to apply for the grant, we have to assume that if we get it, we'd either, and you decide later on that you don't want to do it, we'd either have to give the grant back, or we are committed to doing what we said we were going to do.
Or theoretically, could we ask to make a change and only do the restroom part and then ask if we can use the stage for a different location or something like that?
Well, I think it's a vibrant spaces grant, so I think the appealing part of it is the stage to bring the community together. If you read, it's a gathering
The
space.
other part of that is it's a gathering space, and the benefit, at least as I look at it, one of the benefits of Wickdell Park is that there's businesses right across the street. And that's what this grant is trying to incorporate. It will incorporate area businesses to the space where you want people to gather and collect.
So the grant would be specific to Wickdall Park.
Yes, and having the businesses right there would be a benefit for us in trying to receive this grant.
And Mayor, if I may, as you look at the program alert, it talks about in the heart of the communities, fostering community connections and creating accessible locations for businesses. So I think that the intent of this funding is to look at something that's in the middle of the community.
Well, Omaha's right a block away.
Well, I'm just reading what it says on the grant.
And I don't see why we couldn't have both someday, because I really, so I think years ago when we talked about the planning, our community wanted a public space. If you look at the old drawings, like over by Omaha, there was like wasn't it like a mock, like
A band shell.
train, well, it was like a train station there where the trail went through. Like they had like, I don't know, I remember seeing different drawings there. It was like a train station. Do you know what I'm talking about?
It was public space in the
Public space in the comp plan. And so I think like once our community starts to like, for example, like the brew pub when it gets built and we kind of start to shift and have more businesses, like restaurants on that end of town, next to Copa. I mean, I think we can have both. And I think that community space can be visioned for lots of other things besides a band show.
I think Wickdell Park is being wasted myself.
In terms of it being a downtown location. Yeah.
I think we have a park on Main Street, which is great, Legion Park. I think that, and I certainly wouldn't want to take that away, but Wickdell Park is, something that I don't see it being utilized as much as the parks. If we had park space on Omaha, it could be used for exactly what Wickdell Park is being used for now. I mean, there's a few festivals there every year. If we're going to have music there, at least you can see the lake. It probably would be an attractor for people to stop. And I think Wickdell Park would be better served to have a mirrored type of Main Street business just across the street from what's there now. Small shops and that kind of thing, rather than overgrown trees.
So for the decision tonight, we have to decide whether we want to proceed with applying for the grant. And in the meanwhile, it looks like we need to continue thinking and discussing about that concept. I mean, and then I don't know if we're going to get to a place where we would make a decision in time to withdraw the grant. But I guess we wouldn't hear about it till May, so we have a little time, so.
Right.
I guess I just want to bring us back to, do we want to go ahead and proceed with applying for the grant? And then knowing that we may end up potentially changing our minds.
And we do have a motion to approve the resolution.
Yeah.
Correct. So is there any other,
I just have a question, yeah, about the matching grant, aspect of it. Assuming we get the grant, is it a given that we use it? I mean, is this assuming that we can also afford to pitch in the other?
Yes.
Okay,
Or we have to get the money back.
okay.
Yeah.
So we figure out if we can afford that extra money when the time comes, or get the grant back. So
It's one of those things where I think Scott would incorporate that into.
At this point, if you approve this application, we are committing these dollars for this potential project. So we would have to hold these dollars in reserve.
Okay.
would that be something to come out of the parks designated fund, or does this have to come out of a capital?
This is proposed to come out of the parks designated fund.
Okay, and
Unless we decide to change that later, but that's where we would have the dollars now.
That's not in the memo.
Yeah.
and that money exists.
Oh, I missed that.
There is adequate dollars within that fund to cover this expense. The question always is, what would you rather spend the money on? Would it be park expansion or tennis courts or
Pickleball
other?
courts or docks or keep going on.
Correct. What's the priority?
And by approving this, we're making this a priority.
Yeah, and I would say that the Parks Committee, we have not spent any like significant amount of time going through the proposed outdoor recreation plan and prioritizing park designated funds for a recommendation to council. We just haven't. And again, every time we go to use this parks designated fund, we have the same conversation. Like, oh, well, what do we use it for? Ooh. Not, how much is in there?
Some 250,000 at this point.
So it'd be close to half of it. It would like less than half of it, but we've been building that up for a while, for sure.
There are bathrooms to consider. Is this the time we need to discuss the pickleball courts and the development up on Hillside? Is this going to detract from that project?
So what about this? Is it possible for, and it would require the motion to be amended potentially, but could council approve this contingent upon Parks Committee review, which is backwards of how it normally happens? Is there time to do that or not so much?
I mean, I just feel like the Parks Committee really would struggle with this. I don't think that the Parks Committee would give this body without like really diving into, again, where we would have community input into these different kind of things that we're talking about. You have to make a list, right? Pickleball matching of grant funds when we do the expansion of West End Park Plan, right? Because
Correct. I think we have to keep in mind what the park committee was created for. The park committee was created for policy and plan review. The park committee was not created to be the financial review body.
No, I'm talking more plan review as being what they would be doing. However, I really am feeling Jen's point here.
I
going after the grant, without having thought through the priorities.
Right, and I'm not saying that the Parks Committee, that's why I kind of was like, I don't think the Parks Committee would help, right? Because I think
Yeah,
we'll
okay.
struggle and just put it back to the council. Where you hear my angst is the fact of, it gets back to the planning. You know, like the whole time I was thinking of, our last agenda item and how much planning Jerry and Scott and Tony have done and all that beautiful stuff in front of us. I'm thinking to myself, this is like a great example of planning, which we just
Yes.
don't have when it comes to some of our campground expansions and some of our recreation and some of these other things that are important to our community. We kind of fly by the seat of our pants a little bit with this stuff. Again, I'm in full support of this kind of thing. I just feel like, Dave brings up, doing it somewhere else. And then somebody's gonna bring up, well, what about a pickleball court? And what about matching funds for a bathroom down at West End Park when we go for grants? And we wanna, I'm working with the Parks Committee right now for conceptual designs for the open field area for rustic camping.
Right.
This is the kind of stuff that the park designated funds are really nice to have when you go for matching. And I think we just don't have enough planning and information to determine, do you want to spend $80,000, $90,000 of the park designated funds for this type of thing? Does it sound great? Yeah. Will our community love it? Yeah. I've always wanted to balance what we do for our community versus tourism. And to me, this is like a prime thing. I appreciate Tony bringing this up to council because I do think it's a really good idea. Matter if this is where we want to spend the money on.
And I just want to also bring to council's attention that there are grants. It's not like this is the only grant that we're ever going to have a chance to apply for a park project. There's the DNR ADLP grants that are 50-50 matches that are a yearly cycle that if we do for some reason not proceed with this particular grant and do some additional planning and get comfortable with our decisions about priorities, there will be opportunities to apply for those grants on an annual basis.
So Mary, if I may, and
Go ahead.
I'd like to thank Tony for it too, but I would say we have spent a lot of energy and a lot of years on the expansion and improvement for West End Park. And we have all agreed that at one level or another, that is where we'd like to invest park money because it would increase down the line, it will increase our funding for the city. I think the idea that Dave, you brought up is something that is so brand new, but it's worth having a discussion about. And I personally would vote against this simply because, I am really bound to start making improvements in some bit of development at West End Park. So to not take a vote just yet, I would say if we're committing the funds by applying for this, I'd have to say no. I'd rather see the funds stay where they are and continue our path towards West End.
And that includes bringing more revenue to the city, which
Right.
is definitely something.
A bathroom would be great, but again, this is a brand new thing to think about. So that Dave brought up, and I would like the opportunity to weigh that.
Well, and I think no matter, I think we can do both. I think having a park downtown is, I think that it's valuable for other things too. And I do think it brings in, I know we have two, but I think it brings in economics too. When people go and get their pizzas and stuff and they go across and they eat in the park, and you see that quite a bit.
I think it's been used a
I was
lot.
gonna say, I think
it's
Wickdale Park
used.
gets a ton of use.
Yeah.
So I think we could have both. The question I think right now is really, do you want to spend the funds? And is there another way to get the funds? Is there like another matching grant that we could do where we don't have to? I can see using some of the funds, like 25,000 or 20,000 to get some like matching, but like 95,000, like half of it, depending on 50, you're at 95,000 if these estimates are correct. Because you could do something smaller too, where you just match, you know what I'm saying? We're going for the gusto here, right? Which is great, because I do think we need a back room. But also like a band shell if you were to match a band shell, that's like something like 10, 15,000, which is much less of the park designated fund, which would still meet the intent of this funding source. So there's options there too that we're not thinking of, right?
The band shell is listed at 40,000.
Yeah.
But where did that number come from, and is this necessary to stick to? So say we get the
That-
full grant.
That
can
amount
we use a
came from
portion of
a
it?
local contractor.
Okay.
As an estimate. The cost of the bathroom was, the direct cost from Pup Cut, which is.
Yes.
Same bathroom.
I think bathrooms are expensive.
I have to say, I think there'd be a lot of benefit to having a public restroom in that area. It's something that I've heard asked for, and yeah, having one downtown. And there's something you said about multiple small parks, and I mean, I can agree with a number of points Councilor Anderson made. However, there is something to be said for the visibility of our highway going right by there, that I am more likely to know an event's going on if I happen to go by it, if I haven't seen it posted, and it'll cause me to stop. So it's have an effect on visitors as well. I'd love to see the bathroom going. I am not clear on whether this is necessary to stick to the whole extent once we write this application. Can it be worded so that you have some flexibility to, if that's possible, then I fully support at least trying for the grant.
Yeah, can we take some
Because
money
we
out of the
can-
park designated fund and then some money we can go for funding and other funding resources? So it's kind of like a split, like that's more palatable.
The band shell sounds not necessary, but at the same time, it's a shelter, which is necessary. It's totally necessary. At least a few of those around town would be nice. Yeah. Right, and like that.
After the wind we saw.
It would be even better if we could apply for this and say, and let us choose the park.
Right.
I assume you have to name it.
That was my thing, if we can apply for this without attaching it to a specific park. And that,
Are you writing this down?
I would be putting this together, and the appeal of Wickdale versus Omaha right now is that, again, Wickdale is right downtown, right
And that's
across
what
from
they want.
businesses. That's what's going to be the appeal for this grant.
I agree.
They were already,
I think the public, especially the people that live here, would rather gather where they can see the water.
that might
That's-
be true,
that's
but
my
they're gonna
opinion.
wonder why money was put into something, a decision made without input, when it's not a comprehensive plan.
Agreed. So the motion that's on the table is to proceed with this as presented, correct?
That's correct.
And so let's just, unless anyone has anything else, let's just take a vote on this motion, which is as presented. And then we can go from there. If it fails, then we can have a new motion.
You have
But unless there's further discussion, I feel like we're kind of going in circles
Could we
here.
at least amend it to direct the applicant to look into wording that might allow flexibility for location or amount of funds used, or whether there's just bathrooms, any flexibility at all. That needs to be in the amendment.
Mayor, if I may, before we take a vote, there is a person in the audience that wanted to be recognized, and so I would make a motion that we open the floor.
I second the motion.
Okay, motion by Karen, second by Jen to open the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The floor is open. Who is our mystery guest in the audience that I cannot see?
John Hopkins.
John, grab the microphone, please.
Hello, everybody. I'm getting my address written down here. So I'm the business owner, right, kitty corner, right down there, right from Whipple Park. And right at this point, as a business owner, I had people coming to me asking to use my bathroom. I don't like that too much, really, because I've had to clean it up a few times. And so if we did have a bathroom that was available at Whipple Park, that would be a service for a lot of people in that area. Now, we do have restaurants, we do have another gallery down the way, but, this whole idea of having a public, restroom, I think is a great idea, from my point of view. People come, in the area, I understand the idea of Omaha Street wanting to see the lake, but people come to my place to see the art, not the lake, and frequently to ask to use my bathroom. So just, putting that out before you, I'd love to have another bathroom somewhere. How's that? That's it.
Thank you for your input.
And Mayor, I would move to close the floor.
I'll second.
Motion by Karen, second by Tom
Yeah.
to close the floor, or was it Dave? Whoever it was, Tony, you know who it was, I can't hear. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The floor is closed. Any other questions or comments? Scott?
So just on the one question, can we go for other funding? This wouldn't prohibit going for any other eligible grants that may come to our attention. As far as other funding, it would be potential. That'll be up to this body next year during budget time. If it instead would somehow be able or want to allocate dollars for out of the capital fund, or if it gets included with the borrowing that we will need to do next year, or about this time next year, that would also be a possibility, as opposed to taking it out of the park designated fund. However, for the moment, without any further options on the table, we would need to commit the dollars from the park designated fund until other options would become available.
Thanks for that.
Okay, appreciate that. Anyone else?
I had asked previously if it would be necessary or helpful to have an amendment that directs Tony as the applicant to look for any fine print that might allow for flexibility, whether it's in how the funds are used or location.
I mean, I guess that's up to the people who made the motion to decide if they want to make an amendment. Otherwise, we can certainly just ask Tony to look into that as an option. That would have to be a change asked for later in the process.
Do you know that already?
I have not looked at the grant application because if it doesn't go past council tonight, it didn't make sense to. So I don't know how, I mean, I am connected with the WEDIX website to fill out the application, but I haven't looked at this.
Just when you read the application, it's like boosting foot traffic when you write businesses, and I think like it really does lend itself to Wickdale. I mean, eventually.
It does.
Talking
Omaha
about
is
how much money
close,
we're
I
promising.
agree, but
Well, we can get into the.
I mean,
we can get into that detail.
I asked about other projects that have been talked about, playground, improvements at West End. They're not looking at anything to support one specific group. It's a general area for public to gather.
Yeah.
Public space.
And order, aren't we? Call it management of these facilities. Do we talk about those expenses?
Good question.
Just sorry.
Some of that's going to depend on if it's a seasonal restroom or not.
No, it isn't. They get cleaned all the time. Be maintenance.
So right now, are we still contracting for the services to clean the restrooms at the campgrounds, Scott?
Yes.
So would we need to add this to that contract?
If this would be successful and it would happen, yes, we would have to add this to that contract.
So there's an ongoing cleaning fee that would go along with this, just so everyone is aware. That was a good point to bring up. I see Melissa has a comment that the porta potties are only cleaned once a week. And in the winter, you know, if it were a seasonal restroom and we were to have a winter event, you know, events oftentimes have a bank of porta potties as part of, you know, so it's not going to solve all of the problems or, you know, needs, even if it were a year-round restroom. But is there any other questions or points, or does anyone wish to amend a motion or?
I call the question.
Okay, so the motion is to authorize Resolution 23-002 to apply for a Vibrant Spaces grant for Woodbell Park as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
Opposed?
Was that 2 opposed?
correct.
Yes.
And the motion passes. Okay,
Nice conversation.
yes. Okay, well, we'll see how that goes then, and Tony, you can look into that and proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your thoughts and discussion on that. Next item is discussion and action on ordinance 23-001 related to winter parking regulations on First Avenue East.
I move to approve ordinance 23-001.
Second that motion.
Motion by Carl, second by Karen. Any questions, comments, or discussion? See.
I think I just don't understand it.
Okay, so this is tab 4, and
Maybe I get ticketed. I'm one of those people. I'm dumb. Will you please?
so
Will you please?
the wording is just wrong, is that
I think
correct?
it's just confusion between what is the signage and what the ordinance says. Is that correct? It's just the two aren't the same.
Only on First Avenue East?
Yes,
Correct.
North First Avenue East. Where is that?
from First Avenue. North.
Walk past
Straight up,
Central. So basically, from Mayfield Street until you take First Avenue East all the way north, kind of goes past the courthouse, exits close to the, what's called the ambulance hall there, because it is intended to be an emergency route.
Ah,
So that was the intention. However, the ordinance only had a couple blocks of it in the books, but the entire length of that road is actually signed. So this ordinance is correcting that to have the language match what is actually signed.
thank you. That's all I need.
So it's going all the way from Mayfield Street up to Washington Avenue.
Correct.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next item, discussion and action on resolution 23-001. Oh, is that, okay, the other one was 002, but it was added after this one. 23-001, combining wards into a single polling place for 2023 elections.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mary, second by Karen. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion and action on street closures, request for Bike Across the Bay on February 19th, 2023.
So moved.
Tab 6.
Second?
Was that Mary and second by Laura?
Yeah.
Any questions, comments, or discussion? This is, I think, the same as the one we've done in the past, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
so because there's not gonna be, they used to go across the bay route, so now they're gonna have to do their own.
They are going to hire a groomer to groom the trail from West End Park to the closest access to Book Across the Base Trail, and then we'll use that for the bike route on the way.
Wow, thank you for them.
Do that Friday night.
They should. They should.
Any other questions?
Nope, we're all good here.
Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And with that, we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks, Mary.